The number one question I get across social media, emails, and even in real-life conversations is always some version of the same thing. How can I get bigger? How can I get longer? Or how can I increase girth? It's something a lot of men think about, but very few feel comfortable talking about openly. So today, instead of avoiding it or brushing it off, I'm going to address it directly, honestly, and with actual evidence. I'm going to walk you through what science really says about penile length, what is considered normal, why so many men feel dissatisfied even when they're completely within the normal range, and what options exist if someone is truly looking into changing their size. And just as importantly, I'm going to explain what does not work, what can be dangerous, and what you absolutely should avoid. Before we even get into methods or treatments, we need to establish something important. Most men who are worried about their size are actually normal. That's not me trying to make you feel better. That's what the data shows. There was a large survey done on tens of thousands of men, and more than half of them reported being unhappy with their penis size. But when researchers asked their partners, the overwhelming majority, over 80%, said they were satisfied. That gap tells you something powerful. The issue often isn't reality, it's perception, and that perception is heavily influenced by what you see online. Pornography, social media, unrealistic comparisons, these things have completely distorted what normal looks like. When you're constantly exposed to extremes, average starts to feel inadequate, even when it's not. So let's ground this in reality. When you look at all the scientific data combined, the average erect penile length is about 5 to 5.5 inches, or roughly 13 to 14 centimeters. And there's a normal range around that. Being slightly above or below doesn't mean there's anything wrong. In fact, what's considered medically small, what's called a micropenis, is extremely rare. It affects a very tiny percentage of the population. So if you're worried about your size, statistically speaking, you are almost certainly within the normal range. But here's where it gets more complicated. Even if someone is within the normal range, they can still feel significant distress about their size. There's actually a term for this. It's called small penis anxiety, and it's a real psychological condition. This isn't just mild insecurity. For some men, it becomes an obsession. They can spend hours every day thinking about it, comparing themselves, worrying about it. It can affect relationships, confidence, even daily functioning. In extreme cases, it can lead to serious mental health issues. And that's why this conversation matters. Because if the root problem is psychological, no physical change is going to fully solve it. You can change your body, but if your perception doesn't change, the dissatisfaction often stays. Now, when people search for ways to increase size, they're usually flooded with information. Some of it sounds convincing, a lot of it is misleading, and some of it is outright dangerous. There are basically two broad categories of options, non-surgical and surgical. Let's start with non-surgical. One of the most overlooked but actually effective approaches is psychological support. Talking to a trained professional, understanding body image, addressing anxiety. This alone has been shown to significantly reduce distress. In fact, many men who go through counseling end up no longer wanting any physical intervention at all. But let's say someone still wants to explore physical options. There are devices known as penile traction devices. These are designed to apply gentle, consistent stretching over long periods of time. And this is important. They are not quick fixes. They require discipline, consistency, and patience. We're talking about months of daily use, often several hours per day. What does the data show? Some studies have found small increases in length on the order of about 1 to 2 centimeters. That's not dramatic, but it is measurable, and it's one of the few methods that actually has some scientific backing. Even then, results vary. Some people see changes, some don't. There can also be side effects like discomfort, irritation, or numbness if used improperly. So it's not something to jump into casually. Now let's talk about other non-surgical options people often consider. Vacuum devices, for example, are commonly marketed for enlargement. While they can help with erectile function temporarily, they have not been shown to permanently increase size. Then there are injections. This is where things start to get risky. Various substances have been injected into the penis in attempts to increase girth. Some of these have led to severe complications, deformities, infections, long-term damage, even problems that show up years later. This is not something you should experiment with. The risks far outweigh any potential benefit. Now moving into surgical options. One of the most commonly discussed procedures is cutting the suspensory ligament. This ligament anchors the penis to the pubic bone. By releasing it, more of the internal portion of the penis can extend outward, making it appear longer when flaccid. But here's the key point. It does not significantly increase erect length, and it comes with risks. You can lose stability during erections. There can be complications with healing. In some cases, the angle of erection changes in ways that are not desirable. There are other surgical techniques as well, grafts, implants, even the use of cartilage. But overall, the data is not strong, and complication rates can be high. Satisfaction rates are often lower than expected. Because of this, most professional medical organizations do not recommend these procedures for men who are within the normal size range. They are considered experimental at best. So where does that leave us? The reality is, there is no magic solution. There is no quick, easy, risk-free way to dramatically increase size. The only method with some evidence requires time, consistency, and realistic expectations. But more importantly, the biggest shift often comes from understanding what is normal and addressing the psychological side of the equation. Confidence, communication, and connection play a much larger role in sexual satisfaction than size alone. That's not just a feel-good statement, it's backed by research and real-world experience. If this is something that's been on your mind, the best first step isn't buying a device or looking for a procedure. It's getting accurate information, and if needed, talking to a qualified professional. Because at the end of the day, your health, your function, and your well-being matter far more than chasing an unrealistic ideal. And once you understand that, everything starts to shift, not just physically, but mentally as well.